The authors of a new report say they have proof that Beijing is intent on destroying China's Muslim Uyghur population as part of a broader campaign to unify the country under one ethnic identity.
The evidence is overwhelming that China is clearly in breach of the 1948 Genocide Convention.
That evidence included public and leaked Chinese state documents, testimony from more than 10,000 eyewitnesses, and satellite images. The overall conclusion, it all points to President Xi Jinping's brutal goal to meld the country's 55 ethnic minorities, including Uyghurs, into China's Han culture. Han Chinese account for more than 90% of the population.
He himself is less of a communist and more of a Han nationalist. He is in the process of signification of the entire country. And it's not just the Uyghurs that are Muslims, they are the most prominent ones, but there's actually other minorities too. There's Kazakhs, there's Uzbeks, etc. And even actually Christian minorities, they have a process of bulldozing down churches.
7 years after President Xi told authorities to show absolutely no mercy to the Uyghurs, as many as 2 million of them are now locked up in concentration camps spread across China's Xinjiang province. There, they endure torture, rape, forced sterilization, slave labor, and are stripped of their Muslim faith and told to embrace communist ideology.
The Chinese Communist propagandists call this re-education camps or vocational training centers. They must think we're idiots.
Some 500,000 Uyghur children have been removed from their parents, placed in state-run orphanages, and brainwashed. Gordon, as you might expect, China has repeatedly denied that its ethnic policies amount to genocide.
Well, George, tell us what the U.S. response is. Are we doing anything to address this with the Chinese government?
Yeah, I mean, since these reports have come out in the last 3-4 years, Congress, both chambers of the House have passed bills that would penalize companies, specifically U.S. companies that operate in Xinjiang province. The U.S. imports close to about $9 billion worth of cotton from China. 87% of the cotton manufacturing comes from Xinjiang province. There's a huge solar farms and various other tomatoes, apples, all kinds of products coming from Xinjiang province. The U.S. Congress is going after companies like Nike, Coca-Cola, Tommy Hilfiger, Adidas that have huge operations in Xinjiang province, and basically saying to them, listen, you are a part and parcel of fuel. You are complicit in fueling this persecution against Uyghurs by using Uyghur workers in these factories. These need to stop, and also putting sanctions on any products coming into the country from Xinjiang province.
Well, as consumers, should we be aware of this? How do you track what companies and specifically what products are being made by slave labor in China?
I mean, it's a very, as you know, it's difficult. It's not always easy because of the range of factories across China, not just China, but other Southeast Asian countries, as you know. But clearly, the United States, with this recent report that just came out yesterday from last week from Newsline Institute, DC-based think tank, it clearly documents since 2014 what Xi Jinping has embarked on in the sort of idea of Han nationalism, and trying to identify the specific products is going to be difficult. But clearly, what Congress wants to push is this idea that China needs to be held accountable for its treatment. And also keep in mind, right now, China is scheduled to hold the Olympics in China, and there's a lot of pressure on the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, to scrap the whole idea of holding it in light of these new reports on China's accusations of committing genocide.
Well, let's talk about President Xi and Han nationalism. It's actually nothing new. Han Chinese nationalism goes back for thousands of years. There's been a couple of periods of time where they were ruled by, quote, foreigners, and whether that was the Mongols or Manchurians, they didn't like it. So Why the resurgence now? I know for years they were trying to say we want to be one with all the minorities, and now they're going against that. Why?
Yeah, some of it stems back from 2014 when there were probably 157 people who died in terrorist attacks in the Xinjiang province, and Xi Jinping launched this campaign to go after these radical Islamic groups in the name of terrorism. But what we have seen since 2014 is this brutal campaign against Uyghurs. And specifically, Gordon, yes, you're right. This whole idea of Han nationalism has been around for a very long time. But Xi Jinping, unlike any other previous leader, has used this hyper-nationalism along with various autocratic policies to really crack down on the country, crack down on dissent, crack down on any accusations, any criticism of the leadership and communist ideology. And so, as the researchers discovered, is that it's not just Uyghurs. Obviously, they are in the crosshairs of Beijing, but Kazakh, Uzbeks, Christians are also part of this whole idea that, the rest of the 10% of China that is not Han, part of the Han culture, needs to come into this fold and create this one unifying identity. And what's happening is that the birth rates, for example, in Xinjiang province, compared to the national statistics, in the last 2 years, half of the population has, the birth rates have plummeted compared to the national numbers. So clearly, there is an effort to, what they say, dilute, what the researchers say, dilute the Uyghur culture, force them to speak not Uyghur language, but force them to speak Mandarin and dismiss their various cultural as well as religious practices.
Well, that's not a new tactic. You go back in history and what they did with Tibet. Number one, exactly. It was migration of Han Chinese to Tibet to take over the population there.
And that's exactly what they're doing in Xinjiang.
Then the Dalai Lama went into exile, and the supposed religious head of Tibetan Buddhism became someone handpicked by the Chinese government. Are they doing that to the Muslims as well?
Absolutely, they are. Yeah, that's the huge concern. They say close to about 2 million Uyghurs are in these so-called internment camps where they are brainwashed. The reporters, the researchers discovered that they're forcing Muslim men to shave their beards. They're not allowed to take part in the yearly 30 days of fasting, which is, as you know, one of the 5 pillars in Islam. They're forbidding women to cover themselves. Again, this whole idea that they should replace their Islamic tenets and their beliefs with communist ideology and principles. That's really what's taking place here.
All right. Well, George, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the insights on China. And you can always get the latest news from George and other reporters from CBN News by downloading the CBN News app. Do it today. Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.